A lot of us founders seem to think that networking is cross your fingers and hope it works kind of strategy, when that's not really it at all. So, as someone who's been going to tons of networking events recently, here are the 7 common mistakes that founders tend to make and exactly how to fix them. Here's where most of us go wrong. We seem to think that networking is just handing out business cards, when in reality, at the root of networking, it's just learning how to position yourself, aka it's your personal brand live. You're releasing it into the world. I've been going to networking events since the start of my career. When I first started, they were more creator oriented, as I'm also a content creator. It was built her personal brand to over 160,000 followers. However, they have slowly but surely transitioned into more business and entrepreneurship events. For example, I went to the All-In Summit, where one ticket costs $7,500. I made an entire video about the lessons that I learned from billionaires there. I also went to ManyChat conference last week, which is the Instagram summit by ManyChat. And these are the 7 common mistakes that I've seen founders, including myself, make over and over and over again. And they're so simple, but honestly make the biggest difference, especially mistake number 5. I think it may quite literally blow your mind because it seems like counterintuitive, but I promise you it's not. So just watch until the end. All right, starting off with a banger. The first mistake is making your pitch too hard to understand. Especially if you're a beginner founder, entrepreneur. I understand you want to sound smart and you know what you're doing, so you want to establish authority and establish credibility. However, the elevator pitch, which is supposed to be like 10 to 15 seconds, being too complex does not signify that you're smart. It just signifies that you have poor communication. How to know if your pitch is good is if you were to sit down a 6th grader in front of you, an American 6th grader, which is like a 4th grader in most of the world due to the education system, but don't get me started on it, and you were to pitch what you do, would they be able to understand? If not, work on your pitch. That's the general rule, unless what you do is B2B SaaS AI intersection with something else and it's powered and automated. So try to stay away from the buzzwords, know your audience. For most people at more general networking events, just make it simple and clear. But of course, if you gauge that the person in front of you just really knows what you're talking about, you can incorporate those buzzwords. But in my opinion, there's nothing more annoying than when you meet a person and they can't even explain what they do, because you start to feel like dumb. You're like, I'm sorry, what? Can you repeat that? Or like, what do you mean by this? And they just keep going with this buzz rhetorics that makes no sense to anybody but them. And then you start to think, am I dumb? No, you're not. They're just bad at communication. For example, my pitch used to be, I prepared this for the All-In Summit, which is a conference founded by the 4 hosts of the All-In podcast. And my pitch was, I'll read it for you. I run a branding and marketing agency to help founders scale visibility. I thought it was pretty straightforward. Branding, marketing, helping founders scale visibility. But what's a branding and marketing agency? How do the two differ? What's scaling visibility? Like, it kind of makes it confusing. What does that entail? A lot of questions. And your pitch should be a leeway for the most important question that you want asked. But you don't want people to be like, oh my gosh, I have 17 questions and I need them all answered. Like that just makes it confusing. So I transition it to, I develop branding and social media for founders and their businesses. Makes it very clear. Branding, if they know branding, they'll ask. Social media is like, oh, buzzword. That's exactly what we do. For founders and their businesses, we work with both. Because our whole thing at B-Factor Social is we work with founder-led service-based businesses. So when it's like a business and then there's a founder at the front of it, we help develop both. So this kind of addresses that. I'm not saying my pitch is perfect. I think it can definitely get some more fine-tuning, but I do think it's a great start. And I practiced it at the other conference that I went to the other day, and it landed a lot better than killing founder visibility and whatnot. So just when you think about your pitch and what you do, focus on one specific aspect. Because notice how in my pitch, I don't go, I'm also a content creator and I've been creating content for the past 12 years and I have 160,000 followers and I work with brands like Microsoft Edge and Notion and Walmart and Amazon and Meta and all the brands you can think of. That's just way too confusing. Focus on one aspect of what you do. Think through and be like, identify the top question that you want them to ask that kind of leads it into the sale, or at least a gauge of interest, and go from there. And once again, make sure that a 6th grade American will be able to understand it. And by the way, I'm not like dissing. I'm not dissing 6th grade Americans too much. I was a 6th grade American too. It's just the education system. And this perfectly leads me into mistake number 2, BSing. Do not BS. The most bright example and memorable one that I can think of is when we were at the All-In Summit, we ran into this founder guy. And by the way, a lot of people at the All In Summit are in tech, AI. So it's like, it's highly technical people. However, most of the ones I've talked to, they clearly explain what they do. It may sound like a bunch of jumbo wumbo words to me, but I get it. I don't have to know the logistics. They're just good at communication. We ran into this one guy in line while we're waiting to get our gift bags. And we're like, hey, what's your name? And he goes like, my name is Walter, let's just say. And we're like, oh, cool. So like, what do you do? What brings you to the All In Summit? And he just, if you imagine the stereotype of a tech bro, and then you put that person on steroids, like that guy, because in terms of how he was explaining what he did, made no sense. And here's the thing, my partner that I went to the All In Summit with, he's technical, he's a software engineer, he knows his stuff, he codes for a living. And that guy was doing something with coding, and we were just trying to figure out what it is he did, but nothing was clicking. And one of the follow-up questions that my partner asked is, oh, what models do you use? And Walter was like, yeah, like Google Gemini models suck, and this LLM sucks, and all these models suck. So instead of, because that was clearly a clarifying question, instead of catching on and be like, oh, you guys are a little bit lost, I'm gonna clarify, he was just like, just try to sound smart, which I think is a huge mistake, because the thing that can help build your reputation and make you sound and seem credible is if you're authentic and straight up and honest. Of course, if you're trying to land a client, don't be like, I have never had any clients before. Though of course you can, you just have to formulate it in a way that's authentic to you, but also instills trust. If I meet a person and I can tell they don't really know what they're talking about, and they use 1,000 words to explain it, in my mind, they're not as credible. If you don't know, then just say, I don't know. For example, significantly better to just say, hey, that's not my area of expertise. However, I would love to learn more. Because you come across as authentic, you're not pretentious. Versus another time I went on a founders retreat in Big Bear, and we met this guy, and he was explaining what he did for like 30 minutes. I'm not even kidding. And he's like, I work 100-hour weeks, 120-hour weeks. I barely sleep. All I do is work. But thinking about that guy now, I have no idea what he does. I'm not even kidding. I have no idea what that man does. And that's because it's just a lot of buzzwords, a lot of pretense, instead of just being direct and straightforward. Oh my gosh, it was so good to connect with you. Let's stay in touch. Have my number? Awesome. Have a good one. Bye. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you think I was gonna come up to you and break the ice while you're standing in the corner alone? I won't. You look way too unapproachable right now, as much as I would love to. I'm just a little nervous to make the first move. So we're just gonna awkwardly stand there until I find somebody else more open to talk to. Bye. Toodles. And that wonderful, incredible skit brings us to mistake number 3, which is waiting for people to approach you. First of all, before you go into a networking event, just identify based on who you are as a person. Do you typically find yourself in everyday life approaching people, or people approaching you? That's important because everybody is a little bit different. I think some people just exude very strong approach me so they can get away with just like standing openly in a corner, and then people just automatically come up to them. However, if you have a slight inch of intimidation in your look into how you are, if you have an RBF, people approaching you will not be the strategy. You're gonna have to go and put yourself out there. And I know this about myself because if you catch me anywhere, anytime, I do have a resting sad face or a resting concerned face. It's like this. Because I'm thinking, this mind never turns off. I'm always on. So my strategy at networking events is to just break the ice and approach people first. Because I know for a fact, if I saw me, I don't know if I would approach me. However, I do try to make an effort. I don't just stand in the corner alone. Look, our friend Alyssa there with a drink on my phone. If I want to be approached, I make myself open, make my body language open, have a soft smile on my face, just to indicate that I am interested, I am down to make connections. LinkedIn IRL, hello. In terms of approaching people, there are really only 2 ways that I found. Let's start with the easiest one. The easiest one is you catch our girl Alyssa. She's standing in the corner, she's on the phone. She may look intimidating, but really she's just nervous, which is why she's on her phone in the first place. Trust me, no work situation message is as urgent as it seems. She's just nervous, which is why she's just there. And she's like trying to make herself look busy instead of just awkwardly standing and looking around, which takes confidence. Hey, at networking events, I think the coolest thing that you can do is just work on ridding yourself of all embarrassment and awkwardness. I honestly challenge myself when I go to just like stand there and be open and not talk to anyone perhaps, but just like stand there and really just take up space and not feel awkward about taking up space. So your easiest approach is to come up to our girl Alyssa and be like, hey, I'm Vera, what's your name? Easy. Trust me, she'll appreciate it. People who look intimidating are truthfully not. If she truly had a work emergency, and if you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to disturb her, what if she's on her phone texting, whatever, she would take a call or that message, she would go out. That's just etiquette. If she were really busy and she was not available to talk, she would go. She would leave the vicinity. The second way to approach is a little bit harder, but it is also awesome. This is like birds with one stone. You scout a group of 2. One of the people starts getting bored, they're looking around, they're looking for a way out. This is when you charge. You go, hi guys, my name is blank. What are yours? Or what brings you here? Blah, blah, blah. How's your night going? Whatever icebreaker you want to do. The reason why it's good is because you're getting to know 2 people at the same time, and another one is that person that's like looking around, they're clearly bored. So you're giving them an escape, which they will be forever grateful to you for. Of course, they're not gonna be like, thank you, you saved me. Thank you so much, I was getting so bored. It's rude. No one's gonna say that, but just trust as someone who's been in those situations. It is quite wonderful. Mistake number 4 is not having icebreakers prepared. And hear me out. Not everybody likes small talk. I personally don't like small talk. However, you can just go for it and just be like, hey, I'm Vera. What's your name? What do you do? You can. If you're confident about it, I think it's fine. And if you're just generally a pleasant person. However, I found that sometimes when people do that, it just feels like they're almost using me. It's like, whoa, buy me dinner first. So I just recommend before you go to any conference, prepare some icebreakers that don't necessarily have to be the most unique in the world. You don't have to be like, hey, I'm Vera. Would you rather get your leg or your arm cut off if you had to live for the next 10 years with that situation? It doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be like, hi, I'm Vera. If you could give a TED talk on anything, what would it be? Like that's a second or third question, not the first. The first can be like, hey, how's your night going? Or, hey, what brings you to the conference? Or at the All In Summit, it was quite easy because it's with the All In podcast. So I was like, hey, do you listen to the podcast? What do you think about the podcast? I heard recently there's been like change in audience dynamics and people are saying they don't like it as much because it's gotten too political. You can just definitely open up with that. I think the simpler the better, but just not like, hey, what's up? Just like ask a question they actually care to ask. That's my biggest tip with anything. It lowers the pressure and it also makes conversations memorable, especially if you have a good icebreaker that's just unique to you. Honestly, I don't have one that's unique to me and I'm like, wow, this one just, it works wonders. However, when I went to the All In Summit, I talked to some people about AI was a big topic, of course. So I was like, how do you think AI will impact marketing? How's the future of marketing going to look like for your company or just for you? Because those are things I'm genuinely curious in. And it's not an icebreaker, that's not the first question I ask, but it definitely makes people remember me more. Because once again, repeat after me, I'm asking questions I care for the person to answer. There's nothing worse than, hey, what's up? And then when the person's answering, you just have a blank stare because you don't DGAF. Worst strategy ever. Be authentic, always. Now, let's get to mistake number 5. This is quite literally, in my opinion, the most critical one. First, the most critical is the pitch. That was a little dramatic. That was like a Mr. Beast video. What would you do if you had to build a house from scratch in 1 year? That was that sort of intro to the mistake. It's not the most critical one, but it is definitely up there. And the mistake is, mistake number 5, I told you at the beginning of the video, it's spending too much time with the same people. Worst thing you can do. Worst thing you can do. So here's how you avoid it. 2 ways. 1, if you're going with people, you're going with a friend to a networking event, to a conference, whatever. If you're going with a partner, if you're going with a coworker, you guys have to make a game plan before you actually go. Be like, our goal is to get 10 new names. Our goal is to meet 100 people. Our goal is to exchange contacts with 25 people. Set an actual goal so that motivates you guys to actually venture out. Because I understand it's awkward, it's a lot of new people, especially if you're not having that social lubricant, alcohol. It's just hard because like I don't really drink at those because I'm like, I don't. And the second is if you're going alone, this is where you're going to struggle the most because it is hard. However, trust me, I've done it. I know that your desire is just to find a person and stick to them. However, that is a mistake. Don't do that. You should stick with people if you can see that they're like, it's a group or like person and they're going to different people. That's important. However, you're not there to find your best friend. Okay. If you do, awesome. Exchange contacts, exchange information, and go on. You're a social butterfly. Start butterflying. Go from flower to flower to flower. Don't just stay at the same flower. You have to pollinize it and then go. I guess it's terrible for conferences and networking events as an analogy, because what do you mean pollinize? But let's not think too deep into it. Like a little bumblebee, just go from flower to flower, do not stay in the same flower. And you can tell when someone's an experienced networker, where, for example, at the All In Summit, it was a recent big conference, that's why I keep bringing it up. I met this girl, Ava. Hey, if you're watching this. She was awesome. This Australian cool girl, and we met at the, sorry, my eye itches, at the All In Summit rooftop networking. And then I went to women's brunch and she was also there, and I was like, oh my gosh, hi Ava. So we were there together for the first 7 minutes, and then as soon as we could talk to new people, like we're in line standing to get a mocktail, we did that. And that is awesome, because your goal at networking events is to meet as many people as you can. It's not to stay in the same groups. When we were also at the All In Summit with my partner, we were at the same rooftop event networking situation, and we were there as a group, which honestly makes networking so much easier. If you can bring someone who's good at networking, bring them. And good at networking, I just mean like open and just willing to put themselves out there. Do not, and I repeat, do not go with somebody who hates people. Been there, done that. Or is just not social at all. Can't rise to the occasion. Don't. It's gonna ruin your vibe. Just trust me when I say. And when we were there, we made 7-8 rounds, and then the same people that we saw at the beginning were just still standing there with the same groups, which if you find your people, that's awesome. But my opinion, you should not be with them for the whole time, because you came to meet all the new people, not just stay with the same old buns. Just even a sales call is 30 minutes. So if you've been there for 30 minutes and you feel like you got the sale, cool, move on. If you feel like you didn't, you just should have been more concise about it. It's like a first date. Make sure that the first date doesn't get too long so that the person you went out with ends up wanting more. I actually don't like that. My first date with my partner was like 6 hours and it was awesome. So whatever, but you get the vibe. Don't stick with the same people. Challenge yourself to actually just go out there, go to the different flowers. Mistake number 6. This is not a super obvious one. However, it is one that I made so much and I deeply regret it. And that is dressing boring. The first networking events I went to were creator-oriented events for creator entrepreneurs and events like Meta. And this other one that was huge, and it was all the major influencer and talent agencies there. And I wore black and white striped pants, black bodysuit, black loafers, black bag. Hello. And now you may be like, Variable, did you have like pink glasses on? I did not. I was the most bland person there, didn't know how to pitch myself, didn't know anything. That was my first true networking event, and it was very, very rough. Dressing fun and dressing colorful and dressing stylish isn't vain. It's actually just a direct representation, a visual representation, if you will, of your personal brand. How you dress and how you look is a person's first impression. How if you're at the gym and you see a person with a six-pack, you're automatically going to be like, wow, this person's a lot more disciplined than this overweight person over here. And that's a subconscious association that oftentimes rings true, because to get a six-pack, you gotta be on the gym. Even if you're on gear, you gotta be in the gym 7 days a week, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, whatever it is. And that shows consistency. If you see a person at a networking event and they're wearing old, torn, dirt-ridden tennis shoes, like jeans and not a shirt that fits them well, versus you see a person that wears dress shoes, like a suit and a shirt that's very fitted and looks good and it's like a fun color, who do you think you're gonna talk to? Well, maybe you'll talk to this person because they're less intimidating, but if you actually challenge yourself, this person will be the one that you want to talk to, because they clearly put thought into their appearance and what vibe they give off. And that's important. If you have a good outfit on, it makes you memorable. When I went to the ManyChat conference, which once again, keep in mind, it's an Instagram summit, I wore the Meta glasses. And a lot of people asked me, they're like, oh my gosh, are these the new Meta glasses? And I was like, and that opened up a lot of conversations. I met director of marketing, or I think like influencer marketing for Red Bull that way. She was the first person that asked me. And I was like, yeah. We had a nice old conversation. And she was like, do you drink Red Bull? Like, we can get your sponsorship. And I was like, I did not like Red Bull. Sorry. And she said, no worries. I don't either. That was kind of funny. But point is, make yourself stand out visually. And once again, keep it authentic to you. All right, guys, and let's finish it up with mistake number 7, forgetting to follow up. Most of the conference business, in my experience, gets done in the follow-up, because you can only share so much when you're actually talking to a person. So with all the people that you met that you thought were interesting, you see them as a potential business prospect or just people that you want to stay in touch with. Always follow up. Hey blank, it was great to meet you. I loved our conversation about XYZ. Would love to catch up sometime next week if you actually want to catch up. If not, then just stay in touch. But also, once again, this goes back to one of the points I made very vehemently. Do not say what you don't mean. It's the most annoying thing. Let's stay in touch. And then the person responds and then you just don't say anything. That literally happened to me. I met this videographer guy as we were leaving an event, and he was making a documentary for the event and like the host and stuff. And we just exchanged contact info, and he texted me. He was like, hey Vera, great to meet you. Let's stay in touch. Would love to chat more. And I responded and I was like, hey, how's this week looking for you? Nothing. And I'm like, am I gonna follow up to that? Yes, absolutely. But is it annoying? Yeah. Ideally, send a direct message on LinkedIn, perhaps a text message within 24 hours. If the conference was on a Friday, it doesn't have to be on Saturday. You could do it on Monday or Tuesday. Have a sense of urgency, but not too much. I personally don't buy into that. Oh, if you didn't follow up within 10 seconds, you lost them. Unless they're an actually interested client, this does not apply. Mention the contacts and add them to the CRM of their potential client. That's something I need to be better about, because then you systematically follow up versus just like, oh my gosh, I remember John. Let me go text John real quick and check in with him. Because networking does not end when the event actually does. It's actually when the business starts. Or I guess continues if you did a good job at the networking itself. So here's the 3 biggest points. First, have a clear pitch. 2, challenge yourself to talk to new people, set an actual goal and reach it. 3, always be authentic. Ask the questions that you actually want to know the answer to. And 4, follow up. And trust me when I say, if you only fix these 4 mistakes, you will stand out at the next event and really make some ka-ching business happen. Now, I would love to hear your networking tips, anything that you perhaps agree or disagree with. This is an open space and I would love to hear your thoughts. Finally, my personal belief is that as it pertains to networking, a lot of it just circles back to positioning. And that's exactly what we do for clients at V-Factor Social. We work for founders and their businesses to clarify their positioning and really just scale their visibility. Basically, think of V-Factor Social as a rocket. There's a star on my water bottle for a reason. It's like a rocket that's going to help your business launch off with the power of branding and social media. Subscribe for more content, leave a comment, leave a like or dislike depending how you found the video. And if there's anything else that you want me to cover, just let me know because video ideas are always needed. Now, have a beautiful rest of your day and